We'll jump right into questions for Coach Boeheim and the student athletes. We'll start in the front row on the left.
Hey, Jim. Going back to the first North Carolina game, you said afterward that Tyler Lydon wasn't ready physically to do some things. What has he kind of done since then that's really made him, better and more of a physical presence, I guess, especially in this tournament?
Well, first of all, Tyler started out the year, averaged 15 points and 8 rebounds a game in Atlantis against, obviously 2 NCAA quality teams. So he had a great start to the year. I think in the beginning of the conference play, he really wasn't looking for his shot as much as we would have liked him to. Then I think gradually, over the last 10 games in the league, he averaged something like 14 a game. So I think he made that adjustment and made defensive come out and respect his shooting. But I thought overall he's had a tremendous freshman year right from the start to now.
Go to the third row on the aisle, on the right.
Paul Woody, Richmond Times-Dispatch for Coach Boeheim. After the game last night, you said Tony Bennett was one of the best coaches you've ever seen, and you've seen a lot of coaches. Mm-hmm. What makes him such a good coach, in your opinion, and is he a future Hall of Famer? Well,
I think he's I don't predict that, but I think he certainly will have an opportunity to do that. He's a great defensive coach, and he's also, I believe, a great offensive coach. They get great movement. They do great things on the offensive end of the court. And obviously, he's a great defensive coach as well, but he's also a very, very good offensive coach. And I mean, his last 3 years, he's had the best coaching record in the NCAA in terms of winning the ACC 2 years, and this year they had a couple glitches very early in the year, or they would have won it again this year.
We'll stay on the left side.
Teddy Greenstein from the Chicago Tribune for Coach, and then I'll have a follow-up for Trevor afterwards. What makes your full court press so effective, and is it going to be tough if you need to use it against a great passing team like Virginia?
Well, our press is great usually for about 2 minutes. That's about it. And it was there yesterday. We work on it. We've used it, but it hasn't been a great weapon for us this year. But it was obviously it turned the game yesterday, and I think these guys just made some unbelievable plays. Trevor made a couple great plays, and in the full court situation, the other game this year we were 7 down against Virginia Tech with 1:22 to go, and the press kind of bailed us out in that game as well.
Are you ever baiting the opposition to make a pass, or you're just trying to anticipate? You obviously had that one kind of under the basket last night. How does it all go?
Just making the rotations. We were able to get a good trap in the corner, and I was just trying to play the passing lanes, and I played the right one and was able to get the steal.
Go in the middle and back row.
Zach Braziller for New York Post for Trevor and Michael. What's Malachi's confidence like? He had obviously a very good freshman year, and great first tournament game. Then the shots didn't fall last few games. You have to remind him to keep shooting. Is he the kind of guy that just has such self-confidence that you don't have to do that?
Is that for these guys?
Michael, you want to handle that?
Malachi is naturally a confident guy. We don't really have to tell him to keep shooting. I think he has that already in his mind anyway. He's been a good player for us. A lot of times down the stretch, he makes big baskets when we need it.
Yeah. I just keep telling Malachi to be aggressive. And good things happen when he is aggressive, as you can see in the last couple games. Even when he missed some shots going to the basket, we were able to get tip-ins and make plays. So we just want him to be aggressive.
Go all the way in the back on the left side.
David Teal with the Daily Press in Newport News, Virginia. Jim, Virginia shot 56-8 against you guys in January. That's the best against you in at least 2 years. What were they able to do against your zone that others cannot or have not?
They shot well from the perimeter, but they also got it inside. And I think during the middle part of the year, North Carolina game, Virginia game, there were 2 or 3 games where we didn't defend very well inside. I think you saw yesterday our interior defense is better. Even though Sabonis had a good game, I thought we did a pretty good job on him down there. When he got the ball, and I think our interior defense is a little bit better. But at Virginia, they made the threes, but they also were able to get it inside, and Gil and Toby hurt us in there. They got a couple threes from guys off the bench. And, I thought we played very, very well offensively against Virginia in the game this year. I thought it was maybe one of our better games. 5-6 minutes ago, it's 50-50, and they didn't lose a home game this year. So I think if we can play at that level, it's a good omen for that we can play that way. But were very good against us in that game on the offensive end. Very good. They're a good team. I mean, they're good offensively against a man-to-man or against a zone. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't win the games they're winning because 99% of the people play them man-to-man. So they're good offensively. They've got a lot of weapons. They don't depend on Brogdon's really good, but if he has an off day, they got other guys that can step up and play well. Again, that's why they've been so difficult to play against the last 3 years for everybody. It's not just us.
We'll go right in the front row.
For Michael and Trevor, could you guys speak to what did you learn, if anything, in the first matchup with Virginia? What does that experience help? And also, when you look at the seeding, do you feel like the pressure's on them and not so much on you guys?
Trevor, you want to take that first?
They're a really good team. Virginia's a really tough place to play at, and they're really good. I mean, they've had our number last couple of games we played them, and hopefully we can change that tomorrow.
Michael?
Yeah, just playing against them the first time, they're a very disciplined team, and we just got to be smart defensively and offensively as well.
Go in the front row on the right side.
Yeah, Michael, given your background in the state of Virginia, whenever your teams have played against Virginia, do you hear from a lot of people down there, and what kind of rivalry are they for you?
I enjoy playing against teams from Virginia just because I'm from Virginia, and there's a sense of familiarity. I'm just looking forward to the game.
Go in the second row on the left side. Good. We'll go straight back by the cameras.
Chip Riere, 8 News in Richmond, Virginia. Coach, what does it say about the ACC that regardless of what happens tomorrow in the Elite Eight games, half of the Final Four is going to be made up of teams from that conference? It's essentially the ACC semifinal and then the right for the final.
Well, I think, I've a long time ago stopped getting into the conference thing about who's this and who's that. We've got a very good conference, and I think that it's hard to document it during the regular season because you look around and the Pac-10 was playing great. Obviously, the Big 12 and the Big 10 in our league. I thought the Big East was really good. When you watch those teams, I watch all these teams. I mean, I watch all these games. I watched the Long Beach State play 4 times this year. I don't think there's many people that can say that, is there? But it's probably something bad about my whatever it is, character or whatever, that I'm up watching these games. But I do, and I thought all those teams were good. I think it's hard to measure leagues. I mean, it's too simplistic to just say, well, this is what we did in the NCAA tournament. I mean, but it's relevant. It certainly is relevant. Again, I've long felt that the NCAA basketball committee should take a look back on the tournament results and see if some leagues maybe, you're getting in based on what you do in your league. That's what you're getting in on. So if you happen to be in a weak league, one of the top 4 or 5 major conferences, and you're just beating the people in your league, and you're getting 6, 7 bids, and year after year, a couple years or something, you're not producing anything in the tournament, then I think there should be some cause to reflect on, does that conference deserve that many bids? Because in the most part, you're getting in because you beat somebody in your league. That's your 2 or 3 good wins. And absent outside wins, that's how the committee has to decide who gets into this tournament. And that's a long answer to, obviously we have proven that we've got a very good league this year. The last 2 years have been very good results in the NCAA tournament. And, I think that has to be, somewhat taken into consideration as you move forward. But what does it really all mean? Nothing.
Go back in the left corner.
Hi, Jim. Chris Herring from the Wall Street Journal. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to ask, I guess maybe 2 questions, but the first one, when you look at obviously how you guys won and the Northern Iowa game, just in general, have you seen the press and teams' inability to beat it have more of an impact in this tournament? I guess would be the first question.
I think that, Northern Iowa game, that's the kind of game you just wish never happened to anybody. In those situations, I always root for the coach to win that had that league. I hate it when a coach gets in that situation and, you lose a game like that. And the same thing yesterday. I mean, it happens. It happens when you're pressing. We've been the beneficiary of that sometimes, and sometimes we've been on the other end of it where we made a horrific turnover. But that's what kids do, and it's just the nature of the game. But it's always, whenever you lose, it's heartbreaking. And when you lose, when you have a little lead or a good lead, those games are the hardest to live with over the years. And you don't live with the wins, you live with the losses.
I guess the second thing I would ask you, when you look at some of the teams that have made it this far, you and Virginia being included in that, obviously this year the shot clock changed and it was supposed to speed things up, and you guys play some of the slower tempos in the country. Do you see that as just it happened, or is it something deeper to that maybe you guys were in better position to kind of?
I think the shot clock thing was good. Obviously everybody knows I'd like to see 24 seconds. I think it would really make a difference in our game. We would have to play faster, and other teams would have to play faster. I think in the long run, I think it would be good for the game. I think the longest, we were about the longest, I think, us in Virginia to get a shot, and I think it's 17 seconds or something. I'm probably wrong, but I remember seeing that someplace, and that we take 16 or 17 seconds. That's still less than 24. I think that I think that would do the most. I think the way they've called the game has been good. I like that. I think they're calling more stuff, then players adjust and you get more movement. I think that's a great thing for our game. I like the clock change. I would like it shorter. It's not going to probably happen in my lifetime because every coach thinks they don't have enough players, except for maybe North Carolina. They'd like, Roy, I'm sure, would like 24 seconds too. But I think it's good for the game. Teams take a long time against us, so we don't want to get into where we'll take a shot quick, but we're not going to run down and take a quick shot. If we just play defense for 30 seconds, it's hard to, just go down and take a quick shot. You can get in a bad way that way. But no, I think the rule changes from what I've seen have been good. There's a horrific rule change that was made, now that I've been nice, taking the timeouts away from the coaches. It almost cost me 2 games. Tom Izzo said it cost him a game this year. When Trevor caught that ball, I'd have been calling timeout. When he made that steal, and we wouldn't have had that unfortunate thing that happened, because I would have gotten that ref's attention at half court, who made that call, and gotten a timeout. Players should not have to call timeout. Players are fighting to get a steal. They're fighting to get the pressure, get the ball up the court. That's what their job is. My job is to call the timeout. And if 5 guys are doing their job, they are sure as hell not looking over at me to call a timeout. So that rule change is the single worst rule change I've seen. I've heard some coaches talk. I haven't heard much about it. I think it's a horrific rule change. And taking the timeout away was they did it to shorten the game. Well, then make all 5 of them 30 seconds. I'd be fine with that. And you'd actually have a benefit of saving time in the game. But you take a timeout, like yesterday's game is a good example. Gonzaga took a timeout because we got to run the start, and then they had to take another one. And now all of a sudden they were down, and they took the last one that they had to take. Now they didn't have a timeout. Now the other horrific rule change is when they look at the clock, the players go over to the bench. So you're getting a free timeout. That should not happen. When there's a clock change, the players should go to the opposite foul line from their bench. Now they can look at it all you want. But that rule hurt us in 2 or 3 games where coaches could set their defense up, set their play up, the whole thing, and they don't have any timeouts. And in reality, there was really no reason to check the play at the end of the game because the clock wasn't an issue. And they can't look at it for the end line. And I guess that's another rule change that maybe should be forthcoming, that if you're going to check on deflected pass going out of bounds, probably should be able to check and see if the guy was out of bounds. Okay, that's my sermon for the year.
We'll have the student athletes available for just a couple more minutes.
I am really fairly humorous and witty, but I guess I haven't convinced too many people of that.
Go in the front row.
Matt Schneiden from the Daily Orange. For Tyler and Day One, I guess holding Sabonis in check relatively yesterday, it seemed like his 19 and 17 were a lot less. What does that say about how far your guys' front court has come in terms of staying out of foul trouble and, I guess, erasing the stigma of just kind of how you guys were out rebounding?
Well, I'd qualify that before they answer. I don't think we did too much holding in check yesterday, but I'll take the compliment for them.
Tyler, you want to take that?
You know, we had a game plan coming into yesterday's game on how we try to slow them down, and I think as a team we did a pretty good job of that, and I'm just looking forward to playing against Virginia tomorrow.
Do you want anything to add?
I think we did a good job yesterday. It could have been a little better, but we just got that behind us, ready for Sunday now.
We'll go all the way to the back.
Dennis Carter, WSCT in Lynchburg, Virginia, for Trevor and Michael. It's been more than 2 months since you guys played Virginia. How has the Syracuse team changed for the better since that first meeting?
Trevor?
I think our defense has picked it up a little bit, from our movement to activity, to getting out the shooters to, I think defensively, rebounding. I think everything has just gotten a little bit better, and I think that comes with the season going on. I mean, you're supposed to get better towards the end of the year, and I think we can see that happening.
Michael, anything to add?
I think we developed a winning mindset since that point in the season. We were just trying to come out and compete as best as we can, and we're expecting to win games.
Got time for 2 more for student athletes. We'll go right in the front.
Mike Barber, Richmond Times-Dispatch. The other day, Coach Boeheim pretty much said he wasn't all that impressed with you initially in the recruiting process. I was curious if you heard those comments. Did you know that? And
he's heard him.
Yeah, obviously things have worked out well for you two, but what was sort of your reaction to the first time he told you that?
Next question.
I told him that a lot in full I forgot the word now, but in full disclosure, yeah. I wasn't that good in English, but full disclosure, I told him that a lot the first year, I think. That's fair to say, isn't it,
fair,
Mike?
Yeah.
He handled the ball every day in practice and played the whole practice every day the year he sat out, got better. Not good, but he got better. And each year he's been with us, he's gotten better. And I believe you could make a case. I like Malcolm Brogdon. I think Brogdon was the best player in the league this year. But I think you could make a case for Michael as being as valuable to his team as Malcolm is. And in fact, I think that Virginia's been able to overcome Malcolm having a bad game. We really can't overcome Michael having a bad game. And his numbers, what he's done, speak for themselves. I mean, he led the league in steals and 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and, shot 42% from the three-point line, 47 from the field. He's our best defensive player. And, those awards, and I tell the players this all the time, the Player of the Year, first-team league always goes to the top 4 teams in the league. That's where it goes, and I don't have a dispute with that at all. But Mike's been as valuable as anybody this year for his team.
Did that motivate you? Him reminding you?
Yeah, that's very motivating.
Take one last one for the student athletes. Second row here.
Jim, just what you can say, you expected more out of Tyler Roberson, and Tyler, I wanted you to respond to this as well.
Yeah.
Just what you can say about calling him out and how he's
Well,
responded to that.
I didn't call him out. Well, he can, I made a comment. He can answer that question, though, I'm sure. It'll be the first time we've heard him answer a question, but it'll be good.
I mean, at this point, I'm not too worried about that. I'm just focused on Virginia and trying to win tomorrow.
He doesn't listen to too much I say anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
All right. We'll let the student athletes go at this time. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll continue with questions for Coach Boeheim. We'll go fourth row on the right.
Jim, Virginia's a bit of an anomaly. They don't have any teenagers in their rotation. They've got some 23-year-olds. As an opposing coach, is that something that you see on film, and how does that sort of play out in the way they play?
Well, first of all, 3 years ago, Brogdon wasn't 23 or whatever, and Parantes wasn't. They were good. They were just as good then as they are now. And now, obviously, they are veteran guys. But the key to their team over the 3 years I've been involved watching them is they've had upper-class players and young players. And the same thing is true this year. They have upper-class players, but they have good young players. And that's what makes a program stable over a period of time. We've always tried to do that. And, we've been hurt a little bit because Jeremy Grants and Tyler Ennis's and Chris McCullough's have left. And those are the guys that we had counted on for, probably being 3 or 4 year players. And Virginia's, had those guys. And they're also very talented players. I think that gets overlooked a little bit in terms of how talented their key guys are. And the fact that I don't think age is necessarily, but they're veterans, that they've been there. They've won big games. All that plays into it. They have a very, very good defensive system, and they have a much better than people think offensive system as well. And that's why they have had the success they win. We have one of the best leagues in the country, and they've won it, 2 years out of 3. And this year, they just dropped a couple games early when they hadn't really quite got it figured out. And at Virginia Tech and at Georgia Tech, they were good teams. If our league had a better scheduling approach, I think we would have, as the Big East used to have, this will get me in more trouble, we would have had 2 more teams in this tournament. Georgia Tech started out with a horrific early season schedule. Virginia Tech also. And I think Florida State, I think Leonard told me, I'm going to go by Leonard's word here, which I think is okay. He played 5 of his first 6 on the road. I'm attributing that to Leonard, so I hope he's right. But, when you get off to a bad start in a league like ours, it's hard to overcome. Virginia Tech did end up 10-8, and Georgia Tech did end up 8-10, but it's only 1 game or 2 away, really, for those 2 teams. And they didn't have quite enough success non-conference, which hurt them a little bit too. But the scheduling is something that's very difficult to figure out and to get it. The bottom line, in my opinion, there's a lot of, obviously television is important. You have to be concerned about it. But when you play 4 games in 7 days, then you're off for 9 days, there needs to be some way to address that if you want to benefit. Because the reality is that the really good teams can overcome any schedule. North Carolina can play 4 days in a row. They're going to be in the tournament. Now, they may not have quite as good a record as they would like to, but that kind of team, those teams can overcome a tough schedule. The old Big East, we had 1 year we played 4 Saturday, Monday nights, 4 during the season. And, we were good, so we overcame it. But scheduling is so crucial, and television's important, but it shouldn't put teams that are going to be bubble teams on the competitive edge, and maybe keep them out of it's one game that can keep you out of the tournament, really, literally. And I'll use ourselves as an example. We were picked 9th preseason, 9th. So we had Pittsburgh, and we had Boston College. That's who we play every year, and that's a balance. A pretty good team, a team that turned out bad. Then they added Florida State as our other team we'd played twice. And that was, Florida State was good, and, they turned out pretty good. Then our other game was North Carolina twice. North Carolina was picked first in the league. So if you're really thinking about it as a basketball person, and we want to get as many teams in this tournament as we can, why would you put the 9th-rated team against the best team twice, which they're going to probably lose twice, as we did? Now, that's a simplistic example. That's just kind of but that's the thinking I think you need to do if you want to get the maximum teams in the tournament. Because the top 4 or 5 are going to get into the tournament. And I think some years, this year, Notre Dame really benefited from the schedule. It was difficult for us because not only did we have North Carolina twice, but we played at the top 5 teams in the league. We played at North Carolina, we played at Virginia, we played at Miami, we played at Louisville, and we played at Florida State and Pittsburgh. So of the top teams in the league, the only one we didn't play on the road was Notre Dame. So I don't think anybody else played that schedule. So it was a very difficult schedule. And I think that hopefully the committee does take that into account when they look at your record. But there's so many things that get taken into account. Sometimes it's hard to take everything into account. But scheduling is crucial. And how I don't think you can just say, well, our next year's schedule, this is it, based on some formula. I think you have to take the schedule that's going to be played next year, and you need to look at it, and you need to maybe tweak it somewhat. We've been in this league 3 years, and we played Duke twice the first 2 years, and North Carolina twice this year. So for 3 years in a row, we've been picked 6th, 8th, and 9th, and we played the top team in the league twice. So, and I know why that is, because they want that game on television. But I think, sometimes that a one-game swing in this league can be the difference between getting in the tournament and not getting in the tournament.
Go in the 4th row.
Coach, you mentioned London, their point guard. He had a nice game against you the first time.
Yeah, every time.
Okay. What about him impresses you?
Well, he does what they need him to do. He's a very good defensive player. When he gets open shots, he makes them. He gets the ball to people. He's tough. He made a tough drive against us when it was a 3-point game at Virginia. Real tough drive. And he doesn't make mistakes. He's as good as anybody. He's as good a point guard as there is, for what he does for his team. And Gil's as good inside as anybody that we've played against all year.
Go in the front row. Second. Go up front.
Coach, you've been at this stage of the tournament with teams that are favored and teams that maybe are a little more of an underdog story. Is there a difference for the players and the pressure depending on the role, or do you not see that?
I don't see any of that. I never saw any revenge factor. I never saw any chip on your shoulder factor work. None of that works. But the only thing that's going to work is tomorrow who plays the best. There's pressure on us because our players want to go to the Final Four just as much as Virginia's do. I mean, this has nothing to do with history. It's this team. This team wants to go. What happened last year or the year before doesn't matter. It doesn't put extra pressure on you, I don't think. I think the pressure will be on if, when it comes down to it, and if it's a close battle, there's always pressure because you want to move on. Everybody does. But I don't think anything else factors in other than the normal pressure that I mean, we're not going to play loose because we aren't supposed to be here. We want to win just as much as anybody does. So we're going to have that same pressure that Virginia will have, and you know, it's just who can overcome that and who can play well. And yesterday, you know, we just fought a little bit harder at the end and made a couple plays, and it's a great tribute to these guys that they were able to. They made hard plays. Those are hard plays to make. And Trevor Cooney made 3 really. The last play he made, we have a normal rotation to go down to the baseline on that kind of drive, but he was over on the other side. He was 15 feet away from where he normally would be because he needed to cover something originally on that side because of Wilshire being the high post. And he had to go an extra 10 to 15 feet to get to that corner to make that play. And if he didn't make that play, the guy's got a wide open 3. So who knows what happens.
Second row on the left.
Coach, Jay Cohen, Associated Press. As a guy who spent his entire life pretty much at Syracuse, what does it mean to you also to see the women's program also be in the Elite Eight this year and to see their growth?
Well, as I said last night, I've been a big fan of that. I've been to several games. I watch all their games on TV. I watched the whole game yesterday. It was probably what ended about 5 minutes before our game started or whatever it was. But I was still watching it on my phone. I got that ESPN app. So I thought it was great. I think it's a fun team to watch. I take a little credit because they played a familiar defense of mine. I've seen that defense they played before, and they just got a great group of girls. They played great this year, and couldn't be happier for them.
Go in the third row.
Paul Woody from the Richmond Times-Dispatch again. Coach, if we could go back to great coaches that you've seen off the top of my head. Dean Smith, Krzyzewski, Carnesecca, John Thompson, Massimino. I'm sure your list is longer. Are there any common characteristics among those coaches that made them successful, and do you see any of those characteristics in Tony Bennett?
Well, they all were good defensive coaches for the most part, and as well as good offensive coaches. I think that's what the great coaches that I look at, that I respect as great coaches, are able to obviously coach at both ends. Some of those guys got better players, better talent than others, but you can be a great coach and not have any great players. You know, you can never get to the Final Four and be a great coach. The one thing about coaching that I think is underrated and overlooked is there's a ton of great coaches. I mean, really are a ton of great coaches in this country. When you watch games as much as I do, and you watch the St. Mary's and Gonzaga's play, and you know, then you watch Creighton, and you know what Doug McDermott's father does. That's what I call him. You watch these coaches, and it's as somebody who loves basketball. That's why I'm in this. I love basketball. That's the reason I do this. It's unbelievable. You know how many coaches out there that just do an unbelievable job, and you know what Bill Self has done at Kansas, and Tom Izzo, and all these. It's an amazing game that we have, and you know Tony Bennett's been the best that I've seen the last 3 years in terms of the way they play, how they play. You know, obviously, in the course of your career, you win, and you have to win championships, and you know you have to get to the Final Four and all that stuff. But that doesn't mean if you don't do it, you're not a great coach. It doesn't. But it does in this country. But that's just the way people are judged. And I always thought Karl Malone was the best power forward I ever saw. I don't think he won any championships, but that's my opinion. And so you know, I just think we're fortunate in this game. I watched. You know, I thought the best coach team in the tournament I've seen this year is Stephen F. Austin. You know, I thought they were the best coach team. Just watching them play, how they played on offense particularly, I just thought, wow, look at that team. And I guess Oklahoma State thought that too. But there's a lot of great coaches. Tony Bennett's a great coach, no question about that in my mind.
Go on the right side.
I'd say that if we lost yesterday, too. I've said that before.
Hi, Coach. Shannon Spake, ESPN. I spoke with Michael last week and asked him, just about making the tournament and the confidence that they have. And he said that he felt like once you guys were in, he had full confidence that you guys could make a run in this thing. And looking at the guys and seeing the way that they performed last night, despite the way Gonzaga performed and the way the game started, I'm just wondering if you could talk about, how this group particularly is handling this pressure cooker, and how teams that you've had in the past have handled the pressure of this moment.
Well, we try to just coach it as a game. It isn't a game, but we try to approach the tournament like we approach our games. I think one of the reasons we've been a pretty successful team in tournaments is that we're a good turnaround team, that we're good. It's not as big an advantage when you're playing somebody from your league, but there's nothing we can do about that. But the two things that come to my mind, we were a good team all year. If you're not a good team, you're not going to win in the tournament. We have a good team. We proved that by how well we played against really top teams. Even the ones we lost to, we were there. So it's not that big of a step just to go a little bit further. And so I really thought this team was good all year, and I thought once we got in the tournament, obviously we thought Dayton was good, and Dayton was good until we beat them. Then they weren't good anymore. And then everybody thought Middle Tennessee was good until we beat them, and then they weren't good anymore. And I guess that's probably what they're saying today about Gonzaga, that they really weren't that good. So, all these teams are good teams, and we've had to play well. We've had some adversity, obviously yesterday the most, but we had tough first halves against Dayton. I think we were behind at the half, and I think we were just a little bit ahead of Middle Tennessee. But this team's performed well when we've been behind this year, the whole year. We made a lot of comebacks, and we won, and we made some comebacks, and we didn't quite get there. I think we were down 50-40 at Virginia, and that's a tough thing against Virginia, and I think that was the score, and we tied it. And I think we were down 10 to North Carolina, and North Carolina came back and tied it. So we've made some comeback. I might not be right about Virginia, but I think we were down there. But I think they've been, they kind of know that they're capable of winning, and that's how you have to believe that you're going to win. Or, at Syracuse, we always believe we're going to win. It doesn't matter who we play. We've had enough success that we feel we can win, and I think our players feel that way.
Got time for two final questions in the back.
Coach, Ava Wallace for the Washington Post. You mentioned Anthony Gill earlier, even though Malcolm Brogdon's kind of the most talked about Virginia player. Is Gill maybe, if not on court, then by reputation, an overlooked or perhaps underrated part of Virginia's offense?
Well, I think he's very good. I don't know what other people think about him, but I think he's very good, and I think Toby's very good. And Toby's coming off 2 big games here, and he's a very good player inside, and one that we're very mindful of. But I think with any team that's achieved the level that Virginia has for the last 3 years, it's not ever about one guy. In our game yesterday is a good example of how you win games. Trevor Cooney made the steals. Mike Bennett made the basket that won the game. Tyler Lydon made the block that kept the game in check, and Tyler Roberson knocked the ball loose to Mike Bennett to make that play. It takes everybody, and particularly at this stage of the year, to play and to play well. And it's about the team. Basketball is a team game. It always has been, always will be. Nobody wins by themselves.
Go right in the front.
Jim, two-parter. What impresses you most about Brogdon's game, and then also the pack line defense that Virginia plays?
Well, they're a tremendous defensive team, and I coached against Tony's father. He's a great coach, same defensive philosophy. And Brogdon's a tremendous defensive player. I voted him as the best defensive player in our league. He might have won that. I don't know if he did or not, but I voted for him for it. I think he should have won it if he didn't, and he guards anybody. He's an underrated offensive player. He makes big shots for them almost all the time. And, you know, I've worked with him with USA Basketball. And, he was on our team last summer. I'm the chairman of one of that committee, I guess, anyway. And, you know, he's just a really, really good basketball player. Doesn't say a lot. I like those guys. They just play. They don't have big celebrations when they make the normal plays that they make, which are great plays. But you know, he's a player. As a coach, you admire tremendously for what he does. So it reminds me of Klay Thompson, who we coached in the World Championships. You know, they play both ends of the court. They don't say much. They just let their games do their talking for them. Malcolm's not quite as good a shooter as Klay, but nobody else is either.
One last question back left.
Coach, in the arena out there, there are banners for retired numbers for Jerry Sloan, Bob Love, and a couple more modern guys.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right to say that 50 years ago you were in Bulls training camp?
I was in the training camp with Jerry Sloan and Bob Love, and I scored a couple baskets. I remember that, but I remember doing a shooting drill with Bob Love, and I think Bob Boozer was here, just getting into the Hall of Fame. I was a young player. I was okay. I was down to the last cut on that team, which fortunately I got cut, and went back to Syracuse and had to figure out what to do, which turned out good. But I was in that camp. I remember rebounding for Bob Boozer. He was about 6'9" or 10, and he made 27 straight 17-foot jump shots. And I caught everyone. Everyone did not hit anything. And I said, these guys are pretty good here.
All these years later, can you evaluate how rewarding it is to accomplish the things you have and the high of like a win like last night? Do you ever think, how does that measure against had you made the team, had you been an NBA
Well, it's a good
player?
thing I didn't make the team. I'd have been a very below average NBA player, so I think it worked out good for me that I didn't make that team.
All right, Coach. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
Jerry Colangelo cut.